everybody. Welcome back to the Mojo podcast studio. Listen, if you want to be feeling better about yourself, your energy level, if you have a low libido, if you want to protect your heart health, if you want to help your cholesterol, increase your energy, enhance your sleep, help with depression, reduce the brain fog, get rid of body fat, and get stronger bones and muscle mass, this is the podcast episode for you. This is all about hormone therapy in the form of pellets, specifically bioidentical hormone therapy. Maybe you've heard about it a little bit. Maybe your friends talked about it. Maybe on the golf course with the boys. You know, some people are talking about their T levels, or maybe in the ladies groups as well. Women are starting to spread the good word about hormone therapy in the form of testosterone pellets. Listen, there's a lot of misinformation over the last couple decades about testosterone in women and what it does, what it might contribute to. We're going to talk on this podcast here today with Dr. Cullison and dispel some of those myths with medical-backed science. And look, if you spend the next hour with us on this podcast and you still have questions, reach out to us. You can reach us at our Instagram at mojo.atl and talk to Dr. Cullison directly. But don't sit another day feeling like crap. There's no reason for it. There's a lot of help out there. And today we talk about one of the best ways to get that help, and that is in the form of hormone pellets. So stay tuned, listen to the pod, and we hope you enjoy it. Have a good day. You don't want to be a short fuse. Ready to go? Pellets?
Yeah, let's do it.
Pellets. Welcome back to the Mojo podcast studio. We're here with JC, Dr. Cullison, and today we're going to be talking about hormone pellets. We've covered hormone therapy, testosterone, the benefits of it on this podcast before, but I do want to touch back in on that. Not everyone. It was a surprise to me, very heartbreaking. Not everyone listens to every podcast that we put up on the Mojo podcast studio. So I'm gonna just start at the highest level. Testosterone is probably the hormone we use the most in the pellet therapy that we do. And testosterone is only for men, right?
No, it's not. Absolutely not. You're gearing me up now. We'll debunk that here in this podcast.
So what's up with this negative connotation that testosterone and women just don't mix? Where did that start?
Well, I think there really wasn't a long-standing negative connotation. It just nobody's ever heard of it, and it's just always been presumed that testosterone is for men. And so, women probably got robbed of the hormone since 2002 because of the WHO study, and they pretty much weren't on anything. And then over time, it became kind of an understanding outside of traditional medicine that testosterone was really the more valuable hormone in women, and that a lot of the things that they're looking for and lacking as they're starting to get premenopause and whatnot, the testosterone fixed most of those problems.
Mm-hmm. So when we talk about testosterone in men and women, it's a hormone along with estrogen, progesterone. What are some of the common hormones that both genders have since birth?
Right. So the ones that most people know of, the progesterone, estradiol, and estradiol, and some others, and testosterone, those are the most common sex hormones, as opposed to, say, cortisol and aldosterone, which are just more steroids.
So when we talk about hormone therapy, we're talking about those 3 or 4 that you mentioned.
Right. They're steroids. They're sex steroids. They're not like illegal steroids. So they had a negative connotation. So then they started calling them hormones. Well, hormone is anything in your body that's a signaling agent. But what we're talking about is sex steroid hormones mainly for this talk today. And estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone are probably the top 3. So yes, your ovary or testicle makes those, including your adrenal gland, and then there's some other low-level production throughout the body and other cells, but mainly it's by the gonads, either the ovary or the testosterone.
And as we age,
the testicle.
As we age in both men and women, our hormone levels fall. And when you think about testosterone, by the time women are 40, half of their naturally produced testosterone is gone. And for men, I think the age is 30. Every year after the age of 30, they lose 1 to 3%, right?
Yeah, that seems to be a common buzzword, especially for the women. By the time they're 40, they've already lost a lot of testosterone. And in men, I mean, the testosterone is very high at the time of their 18, even before they're even 25, it's already down. So there's a huge drop off, but then it plateaus, and then there's a slower drop off after that. But in women, it's probably the more notable drop off. And one of the things I'd say is that, going back to your first question, is the testosterone in women not considered the female hormone; it's more the male hormone. But there's a little bit of an injustice on how it gets reported when they do when somebody gets a blood level check. Say they got their progesterone and their estrogen and their testosterone. If you notice on those reports, they'll report the units different for estradiol and testosterone, to where, if you look at a female cycle, they got the testosterone way down here low, and then here's the estrogen doing all this thing in the cycle. Well, if you look at it, the units is different. If you put it at the same unit, say picograms per mil or either nanograms per mil, if you put them unit per unit, testosterone is way higher than estrogen in a female than it is. It's way up there. It's just, now they obviously have more estrogen than us, but what they've done is they've reported it down here. So psychologically, it looks like, there's just very little testosterone going on at all. No, it's way up here. It's just they report it differently. So there's a lot of testosterone floating around in the female. And it's also, I'd have to say that it's meant to be, this is getting further on in the talk, I'm sure, but their body's used to seeing a steady little level of it, as opposed to a men's that's a 24-hour cycle that goes up and down, up and down.
Hold on. So in a male's testosterone during a 24-hour cycle goes up and down. It's
right.
Level?
It's highest during the night, so it's circadian rhythm. So it's like a.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, it's called a sawtooth pattern on a graph. I mean, just in a 24-hour period, it just keeps doing the same thing over and over. Really? But in a female, unlike their estrogen and progesterone, which at different times during the cycle is at these deep lows and highs, the females remains mostly steady, except right around the ovulation phase. There's a little peak there.
So in a 24-hour day, man's testosterone when they wake up in the morning is high or low?
That's when it's at the end of the high range. So
okay.
you don't check guys' blood levels at 3 o'clock in the morning. So we usually tell them when you come in and you're not on replacement therapy, you just want to know what you're naturally making. The most consistent and the more higher range is if you have them come in first thing in the morning to get the blood work.
Okay. So at night, though, it would be higher?
Yes, it's high during the nights and lower during the day. Mm-hmm.
So that's when men get drunk and horny at night. That's a real thing.
Well, there's something to it. Yeah. Actually, it probably has a lot to do with repair phase. The testosterone being higher and your muscles going through a lot of strenuous and workout and muscle, I guess, strain that create growth later. Now you're asleep, now your testosterone up. You may get more of your muscle building while you're sleeping and your testosterone's high.
Interesting. So
that's a theory, but
So in men, testosterone, I think, is beneficial for one really well-known main reason, and that is the sex hormone.
And for building muscle.
That's
the two most common things that guys will think of when you talk about testosterone.
So how does testosterone help a man, and we'll get to the women in a second, but how does it help a male gain muscle?
Well, first of all, your muscles have, and so in women as well, but muscle has testosterone receptors, and that if you think of a muscle cell, if you're talking about the muscle part, think of it having a bunch of little receptors all over it. When that testosterone floating around in your bloodstream free, not bound to proteins. We can talk about that later. But when it lands on that cell, well, that's a signaling agent that's going to internalize that cell to do all kind of things like water absorption, glucose metabolism, and all that to create that muscle cell, to grow and expand and divide to where you get, hypertrophy or expansion of that cell. Now, there's a lot of processes that go on. But in the end, you get muscle building.
So when you don't have a lot of testosterone, when someone doesn't, then that muscle gain is missing that signaling agent to do those things.
Right. It's probably twofold. The one is during that muscle strain of exercising, working out. For one is you lack as much robust workout.
Right.
And then the recovery phase will not benefit as much as well. So that's actually the actual process of working out the muscle and the recovery of the muscle. It probably affects both.
So and then what about the libido? I mean, what are the obvious indicators of testosterone, a good normal amount of testosterone in a man for what it's doing to the libido?
Yeah, so for the men and women, but if we're talking about the men, now that doesn't have anything to do with the muscle cells. Now that gets complicated because it probably has effect on the central nervous system cells for arousal, libido, a lot of things that we don't understand. And now we're getting them to the brain, to where there's a small area in the central aspect of the brain that has a lot to do with sex drive. It's hard to measure that. Think about that. You can't measure sex drive by a blood test, so that's a very challenging thing. It's just known that testosterone in men and women, both, it's affecting those arousal cells that stems from the central nervous system. Not when you give somebody testosterone, it's probably only in a small amount affecting the actual private parts of a male or female. It's as an indirect benefit.
Right. It's not causing an erection, but it's definitely increasing the sex drive in a male.
In the actual arousal phase of sex, yes.
Okay. What are some other benefits of testosterone in a male?
Cognitive abilities, focus. It can actually help you sleep, self-image, mood.
Confidence. What about heart health?
Yes. When not done overzealously, if done right, yes, you can improve cardiovascular health, yes.
Okay. So testosterone therapy in men, I think, is an obvious thing that many men seek. I've been around the golf course and at different functions and guys talking about their T levels and, they're hitting their 40s and they're doing things like taking hormone therapy and pellets, which we're going to get to in a second. So what about the women? So testosterone too much, out there it's like they get hair, their voice gets deeper, and they get these unsightly side effects of too much testosterone. But for women that are premenopausal or perimenopausal, what are some of the benefits of testosterone? Sure.
So first of all, the side effects are few far in between when done correctly, so you won't notice any side effects really. So first and foremost, just so you know that sometimes if you look at a female cycle in 28 days, when they get towards the mid-ovulation, and most women, not all, they feel their best because that's when their testosterone is the highest. It's got a little blip right there mid-cycle where it goes up. And now I've heard some women say, well, no, it's at the end of my cycle, after my menses or at the beginning, and it's probably because maybe some of their female hormones died off. So go figure. But in the women, it has the same benefits as in men. Their cognitive abilities, and a big thing is the rampant rise in dementia in women. This seems to be one of the theories that it will prolong your great memory and ability to focus for a longer period of time. And you immediately can ask women when you get them on this testosterone therapy, they're already in focus, they're sleeping better. They're able to improve their workouts and recover faster to do it again.
And does it help their libido as well?
Oh, absolutely. That's the main force, the main sex drive. If you were to just replace somebody, a female, during, or after menopause, you just give them estrogen. Well, that's got some benefits, but nothing that really helps with the sex drive and all those things I just said. Now, you can look up the benefits of estrogen, and they're there. This is not about maybe estrogen in this talk, but I would have to say that it can improve some of the stereotypical female traits, such as their skin appearance, their skin glow, a lot of the features around the eye, and their hair texture. Women's hair texture, you can't really put it into words, but their body and texture of their hair.
You're talking about estrogen now.
I'm talking about estrogen. So that's the benefits of estrogen, and of course it prevents hot flashes. That's really all. When I tell somebody they really want to optimize their estrogen, I'm like, all right, well, the benefits of this, don't focus on this so much. You're going to get these things.
But a little bit more aesthetic.
A little aesthetic. It could affect the mood some. It really is to attack hot flashes. Let's be honest. When a female has hot flashes, estrogen is the best. There's other things they can do too, but estrogen is the number one. Testosterone, in most cases, can help with that, but not mostly. But what I'm saying is the lengths of the testosterone, the benefits, when women come back and report how they're feeling, the testosterone replacement in them outweighs the benefits of the estrogen.
So, how do you check your hormone levels? What's the best way to do that?
Well, it's with a blood test. Now, if on a postmenopausal female or just perimenopausal female, they can just draw at any time. Now, there are different rules on a cycling female. just think of 28 to 30 days, different physicians like, well, I want to check it ovulation time, or I want to check it right after the last day of your period. So just checking the basic ones, I always just check 3 FSH, estrogen, and testosterone. And depending on the age and where we are and what we're trying to prove, then we'll check progesterone levels as well.
What's FSH?
FSH is you can call it a hormone, but it's not a steroid. It's it's a protein, peptide, that is up here from the hypothalamus and pituitary axis, and that and LH, which is another molecule. Those two go down to the gonads, whether it be your ovary or your testicle.
Yeah.
Just tell them what to do.
Okay, so you're checking how powerful those are.
Yeah, in menopause, for instance, the FSH level, which comes from the pituitary, it's going to be, in menopause, it's going to be really high because it's noticing like, hey, what happened to the estrogen? What happened to the testosterone here? Mainly the estrogen. And so it starts pumping out more. And you can see that those levels are high now in a menopausal female because it's a feedback system. That's how it checks and balances itself. The human has those things all over. So like for instance, when somebody you put somebody on estrogen or testosterone and you check their FSH, well, it's real suppressed because the pituitary is seeing, hey, I'm seeing all this estrogen. Hey, we need to shut down, quit telling it to make it. Well, when that estrogen therapy or testosterone therapy wears off, mainly the estrogen therapy, those FSH levels come back up.
So before we get into the therapy part, if a male or female is coming in and they want to get their levels checked, they would do blood work, and the results are quick. Same day, couple days?
Yeah, just a couple days. In a male, it's more accurate if you tell them to do it in the morning if they're not on any kind of therapy. I'm not such a stickler on that, but I see the logic there. Yeah, they can come in and have their blood checked. They don't have to fast. They can do it any time of day, really.
So someone in their 20s, that's super healthy, fit, peak, performance and, time of life, what would a good range for testosterone be for a man and then also for a woman?
So for a male, a morning draw on a male, let's just say total testosterone, that's what most people are familiar with. You might see a level anywhere from, 5 to 900.
Okay. So if you're in the upper
500 to 900, 500 to 900, sorry.
For a male, and then what about a female?
Female, now realize these are reference ranges. It won't say normal biome. It'll say reference ranges. So in a female, depending on the lab, it might be anywhere from anywhere from like 30 to 50.
Okay.
So I'm sorry. The reference ranges will be more like 8 to 50. Sorry.
Okay, so for a female, it's 8 to 50, and for a male, it's 500 to 900. So already just in normal 20s circumstances, there's a huge disparity in just
men have about 10 times more floating around than women do.
Okay, but
still there's more testosterone floating around in female than those estrogen and progesterone. You see what I'm saying?
Totally. Yeah. So when it comes to just all overall hormones, there's still more per capita hormone of testosterone in a woman than estrogen.
Correct.
But it just seems like women over the last few decades focus on estrogen for hot flashes and things like that as they become menopausal and perimenopausal. So when someone is getting checked in their 40s or their 50s, okay, and they come in and they get their blood drawn, what are typical levels, testosterone levels that you see in a 40 or 50-year-old woman and man?
Yeah, it's really all over the place. So, for instance, just to back up a little bit, we've had some free testing we've done around town on any age levels, that we've done, and we see many females in their 20s who have no testosterone, zero. We're seeing a lot of those in their 30s and 40s where the number might be 10 or 20 or whatnot. I've seen some ladies in their 70s that it's 50, So it's all over the map, honestly. And to just be honest with you, let's say we get somebody and it's 30, a female that's 30 and is 45 years old. Now, a couple things with that. One is we don't know what it was when they were 25.
Because odds are they didn't get it checked.
Correct.
And held on to that medical record for decades.
That's right.
Okay.
We don't know what happened with that. And two is we don't know what their total testosterone to free testosterone ratio was because the free testosterone is the acting agent. Now, we don't commonly check that in women because I don't find it for a therapeutic value to be of anything but a waste of money. But we don't know what that ratio was. They could have had more bound up to proteins that are inactive in their body later on in life, and when they were younger, it was more free testosterone. And the other thing is these are reference ranges that they're given. So first and foremost, realize those reference ranges on one person's blood work may look different than the person in North Georgia or South Georgia or in South Dakota, because they use their reference ranges for those areas.
Okay.
And plus, we don't know what those levels were as considered a normal reference range 100 years ago.
Right.
We don't know.
So someone that, but just kind of generally speaking, those levels fall as you age.
Correct.
So if they come in and a woman has a T-score of 5, you would recommend that person for testosterone therapy?
If that person is complaining of anything such as, I don't feel like doing anything, or I don't have the energy and I can't get anything out of my workouts, I just keep gaining weight, and I do the same workout, I diet like crazy, and I'm gaining weight, I'm so tired, I don't want to do anything, I'm not sleeping worth a flip, I can't remember a darn thing. Whether their level was 5 on the test or 30,
you'd still, yeah.
You could say, well, I'm just going to tell you, we can supplement this, optimize it, replace it, whatever you want to call it. And you may find that most all those symptoms go away by just this. And thing is, the return on that is so high of benefit with the risks being extremely low. We're talking about females here.
Okay.
And so I just tell people you can just try for a while. If it didn't change those complaints that you have, I don't care if it's depression, sleep, cognitive abilities, inflammation, can't work out, don't feel good, don't feel good about myself, my self-image, libido, sex drive, you can run a course with this. It's not like if you did it for 3 months or 6 months and you didn't notice any of that got better, then I'm like, well, okay, you tried. It's not like you burned any huge bridges here.
Yeah.
The risk is so low.
What about for the men? Is there a different risk?
Well, in the men, a couple things. Now, some schools of logic say it has nothing to do with causing prostate cancer. I believe that. I think testosterone replacement therapy does not cause prostate cancer. But I'm going to go out and say, but you need to be screened for prostate cancer adamantly before you start it and even during therapy, because if you were to spontaneously develop prostate cancer, you need to come off replacement therapy immediately, because it's like food for the prostate cancer. That's right. In addition, in men, it just overall prostate growth, not cancer. Now, we're just talking about prostate enlargement, which is an issue for a good many men. As they get to be 50, it starts to be a problem, and some earlier, but really after age 50. And, it can avoid the way you urinate. It's more notable in the ones getting the injections as opposed to those getting creams or pellets. There's a long story behind that, but so you kind of have to watch after those things. In women, see, there's nothing to look after, really. I mean, but in men, you want to pay attention to those things.
The prostate mostly, and then you can check that just with the blood test and get your PSA number.
Right. As being a urologist in the past, I mean, we also check your prostate by exam, which takes 5 seconds to make sure you don't have a nodule. Yes, those are the 2 screening tests.
Okay, so for men and women, there's a few different ways to administer hormone therapy. So there's creams, there's the injections, and there's pellets, and I guess there's oral also, right? So
correct.
What are why don't you rank those in least effective to most effective?
Well, first of all, I'm going to probably say that what I favor first. So in the females, I would favor the pellets first, with a close second being the topical creams or gels.
Okay.
Third being the injections, and fourth being oral.
Let's just talk about oral. Why would tablets or pills not be number one?
I'm not a fan of testosterone or estrogen being given oral to men and women.
Okay.
Now, progesterone in women, that's different. Okay, but you wouldn't give progesterone in men. That's okay. But I don't want your liver having to deal with any of that stuff if it got absorbed through the gut. And now those oral therapies are basically meant to be absorbed into the gums. They're either throat lozenges or they're dissolving tablets. That's what they're trying to make them into. To where who knows what that's going to do to your teeth and all that. And that's not why I don't do it. But just having a hang, but you're going to swallow some of that. So it's just not well controlled. For one, in the women, again, you're doing that every 24 hours.
All right.
I'm not a big 24-hour. If you're going to do it 24 hours, fortunately, the creams I feel is more like you're doing it every 24 hours with a topical cream, but it's more like if you know what a sine wave is, it's a low peaked and trough sine wave. Unlike the orals, it might be all over the place.
Okay.
So in women, pellets, I'm split it up because men and women see things differently, what their body's used to seeing in fluctuations. So in women, it's the most non-peak and trough method available over a 4-month period.
The pellets.
The pellet is.
All right, let's get into the pellets. So
now we're still, but let me just talk about the men. So in the men, I'd rank it from creams to pellets.
Oh.
Then to one close being behind the other, then going to shots, and then the oral.
Well, let's come back to that because I think there's a lot of people that don't even know what pellets are. So,
okay.
What are hormone pellets? What are you talking about there?
Okay, so pellet is a lot of women might be familiar with it because it was commonly used in birth control and still is, where they get it. It's usually up under their arm, not their armpit, but under their arm, where they get this pellet that is usually some sort of a steroid medication within a sort of like a. It's about the size.
Like a capsule?
It's not a capsule. It just looks like a granular formation that gets deposited underneath the skin and into the fat.
You're talking about for birth control right now.
That's right. And it's that way in pellets too, but it's a formulation to where you take in this sex supplementation that you want to be as a prescription, and that will slowly absorb over 4 months. It gets deposited under the skin. So it's a medication. And these are all typically, again, some sort of a steroid compound. So in birth control, they did that in women, but they really had it for estrogen and testosterone for the longest time, even in the 90s. I mean, we were doing it. So you're basically doing sex hormone replacement therapy by implanting a little medical formulation that's got steroid in it underneath the skin that slowly absorbs over 4 months.
So these are, how big are these pellets?
Very small. They look like the size of a couple of coffee straws laying next to each other, or about the size of a coffee straw, but only about, a little about a quarter of an inch or less in length.
Okay, so they're not as long as a coffee straw.
No, the diameter is like a coffee straw.
Gotcha.
And the lengths vary depending on the dose.
So almost like a long grain of rice almost.
A little bit bigger than a rice grain and a little bit longer, but now the testosterone the estrogens are really tiny. You can hardly pick them up. You got to use the tweezers, and it's easy to drop. They're so small.
So these pellets, is it one pellet for a woman going in, or is it a series of them?
It's a series of them. So one of the great things about pellets in women is just so few pellets need to be placed. So you might put in a one long pellet in a female of testosterone, and then another little extra one, depending on their age, 25 milligrams plus 100 maybe, or just 100 one by itself. And some women come in and just get 100 milligrams of testosterone by itself. They're not fooling with the estrogen, and this, it just click a second, just depositing that under the fat about an inch down deep in there, and then pull the insertion device out and put a little Steri-Strip over, and you're done. You can add a little estrogen pellet too, which is way smaller than that. It's hard to even pick it up with the tweezers to put it in the little insertion device.
Is this a quick procedure?
Yeah, the whole thing's less than 5 minutes. Absolutely.
Less than 5 minutes.
Less than 5 minute procedure every 4 months, and it's just a little stab, little tiny hole that's made in your inner buttock cleft. I call it on your backside, an area that's underneath the panty lining or underwear lining. It's way deep where you can't see it, and it gets deposited into the fat of your buttock area.
Right in the butt. Little pellet in the butt.
That's right.
Same for the men?
The men, it's the same pellet for testosterone only for men. Women, you can add estrogen. But the thing with the men, they usually require about 10 times more, just like in the blood level. So that's the downside of the pellet in men. That's why I say I always like to try the cream in the men first, even though pellet's fine. The problem with the cream in men is compliance.
Well, hold on. Before you go to the cream, so the pellets in the men, so they're getting like 10 of these suckers put in? They
10
don't
to
just
12.
make one big-ass pellet for the men?
No, it would, one, it would be painful, and two, it'd be too slow of absorption. That 100 milligram pellet is the best absorption ratio for surface area. If you think of like a surface area of an ice cube, the big ice cubes, they don't melt as fast, but the little ice cubes, they all melt fast. So same thing when you put the implant in, you need something of a surface area size that has the appropriate absorption. Like if you had a real big chunky one, well, at the beginning, it would be hardly anything, but it'll still be in there in 6 months, 7 months. But if you look at the absorption rate, now you've got it real low at the beginning and it's tipped towards the end.
These things are like little ice cubes almost you're putting in.
Well, that's right. And so the
melt
surface
around.
area is important, and I think the 100 milligram tablet,
Yeah.
pellet,
Yeah.
is the perfect absorption at the beginning and at the end, to where 4 months is the perfect time zone.
So you said this is every 3 or 4 months. How is the hormone, in this case testosterone, how is it getting through the body?
It's absorbed and broken down by your body. Cardiovascular output has something to do with it, so it gets absorbed into the bloodstream.
Aha. So it's just circulating every time your heart beats.
It skips the stomach, the liver, and everything goes straight into the bloodstream.
Aha. So like for an oral tablet, it's not getting digested. For a cream, it's not waiting to get through the skin. For injection, it's not going. Injection, it's a muscular injection for testosterone, right?
Yeah, intramuscular is still the most popular in the world, mainly because of the cost. It's lower than the others.
So what's the range of pellets for a man and a woman? Just for that 4-month period, how much does that typically cost?
Oh, the cost.
Just like a ballpark, yeah.
For the women, it's anywhere from $350 to $400.
Okay.
And in men, it can be up to about $450 to $500.
Okay. So, and then for the injections, if it were to also last like 3 to 4 months, how much are injections?
Cost?
Yeah.
I currently don't have but one lady on an injection right now, and that's really because of cost.
Okay.
But the injections are much cheaper. They're less than half the cost of a pellet or creams.
But you got to inject yourself daily with the needle?
There's more than one way to skin that cat. I mean, you can do it every 2 weeks. That's the easy. Put it in the muscle, and it's a very peaked and trough deal. So a lot of people go to once a week injections. And then we have some people doing this newest thing, which has not been studied, and that is called microdosing, where they take it's an intramuscular formulation, but they're doing it sub-Q. So that was not meant to design that, but that's been done for a while off the record, and it hasn't caused any problems. And I've been checking levels on patients doing that, the men, and it doesn't seem to be causing any high peaks. It just there's not a lot of long-term data on that.
So what would the benefits of pellets be then, other than, I mean, it seems like it's a slower way of releasing it through the body, versus injections, which, is it just all about the peaks and valleys of the delivery of the hormone through your body over time?
It is. For men and women, it's a delivery that's steady. There's no peaks and troughs for both men and women. And 2 is bioidentical, which we haven't talked about in just a minute. And 3rd is being compliance. You don't have to worry about any compliance issue in a pellet.
In compliance, you mean just
taking
someone
the medicine,
waking up and not feeling like taking it that
day. They forgot, they're busy, or they're traveling.
Right.
You travel around, whether it be your family or getting on a plane, you don't have to carry stuff.
Right.
And, it's just you come to an office in 5 minutes and boom, you're out of there, and the recovery from it's very minimal. A little longer for the man than the woman because it just required more pellets. The female, it's almost little at all. Yeah. And so those are the top 3 reasons for men and women, though. Better compliance, steady.
You brought up bioidentical hormones versus synthetic. What is the difference there between bio? What does that mean?
Well, synthetic, if it's not bioidentical, let me put it that way. If it's not bioidentical, it could either be hormone that was derived or brought from horse or porcine, or it could be synthetic. Like the shots, those are not bioidentical. Those are a molecule that are tagged with cypionate or enanthate in order to be in a delivery system. So your bioidenticals, the intent of those, which are in creams and pellets, the intent of those are to be identical to what you are making. You as a human are making. Now that doesn't mean that it was extracted from humans and then re-injected into other humans. No. There's some different ways of making it. I've heard yams, soy. There's ways they can make it from those items. Now, I'm not familiar with the production process, but in the end, it looks identical to what your ovary, adrenal, or testicle are making.
The molecular structure you're
correct.
Talking about. So if you put that under a microscope or whatever. So the synthetic hormones can be scary. I mean, those are steroids, right? I mean, that's where the get this negative connotation.
The negative connotation, yes, but the steroid word is very broadly used. So these are sex steroids that we've been talking about. But when somebody says, yeah, he's on steroids, well, it's almost certain that person's been injecting themselves with high doses of sex steroid. Probably not even medical grade. You can just get it from a research company, and they're just doing very high doses. That's the abuse that has gotten people in trouble. So the creams and the pellets, those are basically they're not bound to enanthate or cypionate. They're in a bioidentical delivery system through the skin,
and they need a prescription, correct?
Yes.
And so you are prescribing them responsibility to people that want to kind of get back to where they were as far as energy, libido, just feeling better about themselves. You're not trying to help a muscle builder win Mr. Olympia or whatever and get all bulked up, with sex hormone injections or anything.
Yeah, we will be checking your levels, and you will be getting levels. If you don't come back and get your levels checked on the schedule that we have, we'll quit prescribing it. But we'll put you at a reasonable level that I feel is safe, and there's data that's to support it. I will not be prescribing anybody any oral hormones. Now, I'll do the injections for men and women if they request it. Just so you know, the studies in 2002, the WHO study, which we brought before in women that just got everybody scared where they just robbed them of all hormones, do realize those were mainly tablets. I'm not going to say the name, but those were a standard commercial tablet that they were not bioidentical.
So I think we've come a long way in the last 30 years since the 90s or 80s when hormones, steroids, it was all kind of just cross-polluted into this fog of uncertainty on what that even means. They're kind of drugs. I remember being in DARE in the 80s learning about steroids and testosterone and all that. But when they're administered responsibly under the guidance of a physician, and now with bioidentical hormones in the format of pellets, where they're regulated throughout your body, it's very safe.
Yeah, it's very safe. In fact, you will live longer and have a more energetic life and more optimistic. You will live even if you live to be 95, but you're old and decrepit and you lost your mind. The last 10 years of your life, you're going to be frail, and so optimizing your hormones can really turn around your life to where your elder lives. Elder years, you are thriving, you are active, you have good cognitive abilities, you can maintain a sex drive. And I would encourage anybody that gets on the internet to look up Donovitz, who has looked at over 1 million patients, mostly women, that have gotten pellet therapy with or without estrogen, all testosterone with or without estrogen. The complication rate is so tiny.
Wow.
It's almost nothing.
So for women, no side effects like, some people might bring up breast cancer, as a side effect of hormone therapy. That's been disproven?
Well, that's going to be a long answer. So first of all, testosterone has zero risk of that, known risk. Back when I used to work with oncologists on a regular basis, and I had patients with cancer, and they had patients with cancer, and they were mixed patients with me, and I had to offer them testosterone therapy, no matter what modality I did. They never had any issues with that. There's no known risk with that. Now, estrogen, it's got a negative connotation. People are a little scared about that in women, to giving them estrogen, and so we certainly don't give that to women who have had breast cancer unless we get permission through the oncologist. There's different kinds of breast cancer where you have receptors that are hormone sensitive and all this. It's a very complicated subject. But these new schools of thought now are appropriate replacement of biosynthetic estrogen at slow release levels like that are not a risk for breast cancer. Even though that has been proven in some other studies that I've read and all that, there's still some, people are very nervous about it. And I get it. If you're postmenopausal and you have no estrogen on your blood test, you got hot flashes or not, I will recommend, some estrogen supplementation, but it'll be a low level. Your testosterone will more optimize that, and some people need progesterone if they still have a uterus, and that's a long discussion, okay? But I'm not concerned with it, but we will certainly be cautious of that if you have had breast cancer. But you getting bioidentical at the appropriate levels in administration, I don't feel causes breast cancer. There's many studies show that. So there's a lot of schools of thought who are arguing with each other right now, but most of them have all debunked the one back from 2002 that got everybody scared.
So how many patients, give or take, have you injected hormone pellets into?
I don't know. I've been doing pellet. We've been putting pellets in since the late 90s, even when I was a resident.
Okay, so this is not new for you.
No, pellet therapy has been around for a long time. There's been more of a surge in it lately, mainly because of the women. Men have been getting pellets for a long time, and the women ones probably, it was hardly heard of. It's the same technique and the same following and everything. So it's not like it's a different technique to do it men and women. It's just less pellets.
So hundreds, thousands?
Oh, how many have I done?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Way over hundreds. I don't know if I've done. I don't know if I've done thousands. Okay. I can't remember. I don't know.
Is there a manufacturer or maker of pellets that you like? Or?
No, that's the change in my regimen right there. So BioT is, we partnered up with them, and now I was doing multiple different brands throughout the years, pharmacy make compounders, and none of them had a system. They would send you the insertion kits and no product support, no backup data, nothing like that. But that's what made BioT so popular outside of traditional medicine, is that it is now publicly traded, by the way, but it's got a system of tracking patients' dose guidance, depending on their age, some medical history, how much they weigh, and it going by pre and post insertion levels and telling you to predict the level, the dose of the medicine that you need to keep it in their guidelines. So they've got their own huge history. We're talking about multiple millions of tracking. Wow. And they can track their data because they get it all in a software from all over the United States. Yeah. They can track, so they've got huge data to show such that low complication rate. So we've chosen them because they're the most rigorous. They claim to be, okay? They obviously have to be somewhat true in their game because it's so popular. Rigorous in their manufacturing, their purity, and dosing regimen of proof. So we've just chose to use them here recently. Now, I didn't do that in the past because it was just kind of cowboy land, It just you got a shelf full of pellets and you're putting them in 100% to that particular physician's discretion. It's not being tracked.
So a BioT, and they do bioidentical hormones, right?
That's correct.
Right.
The pellets are all bioidentical.
Oh, they all are.
They are, yes.
Okay. Is it like a compound pharmacy, or is it a compounded thing, or is it something that they're making out of their own lab somewhere?
Well, first of all, they've probably bought labs up that are known to have a great reputation, and they've taken that over and used them as, I don't know that, I don't want to get in trouble with them, but that seems to be the going rate, is they took the exceptional labs under their wing.
I see. Okay. So what, when someone's done having pellets, is it like stitches? Is it, how do they?
The incision is so small, it's just a stab, it's a little poke.
Okay.
So they just get one Steri-Strip. Now the men will put sometimes 3 on there just for more tightness, because theirs is just a little bigger poke. It's not an actual cut.
Right.
The incision is just a poke and a little more. So we're talking about in a male, it's not a quarter of an inch. I mean, it's not even, maybe not.
And you numb them up or something before?
Yeah, that's right. We numb up lidocaine. It's mixed with a little bicarb that cuts the burning down on the lidocaine itself when you inject it.
What's the recovery for them?
It's very short. So in the women, they had that little one Steri-Strip with a little gauze over it and a tape. You take the gauze and the tape off the next day. You don't take a shower for 24 hours, and you don't take a bath for 5 days.
Okay.
You try to eliminate any aggressive exercise for 4 days or 5 days, and especially stuff like squats and things. But after about 4 to 5 days in a female, they can do whatever they want to do. In the men, it's kind of the same. They have a little more soreness because of the pellets. They have only one incision, a little stab, but they have more pellets that are spread around, so they have a little more ache.
Okay.
And we definitely tell them not to get in the tub 5 days, but they really take their bandage off in 48 hours, and stay away, and they can take a shower the next day though, but they just let the water run over the bandage and just kind of pat it dry.
Right.
So it has it's just a little more ache because there's more pellets in there, but it's the same equipment, insertion tools to put it in there.
And any side effects that are like super common in pellets for male or female?
Not really. So the negative connotation that you were talking about with the women with hair, acne, and the one that's not really talked about, the clitoral hypertrophy. Clitoral hypertrophy, we don't hear about that. That's when you've really gone way too high. And now, if they do start to notice something subtle with that, you just need to immediately go down the dose, and then that's reversible and it's not of any harm. Now, the acne and the little bit of small amount of extra hair growth is not common.
Okay.
Is not common, and if it was, that's not permanent. You just, if you want them to, interesting enough, if you hear somebody even bring it up, they're like, "No, I'm fine."
because they want it.
It's doing them so much good that they don't worry about it. But there's not these irreversible effects. And in the men,
what about men? Could they get those that are suffering from hair loss? Can that help?
No, it does not. The hair growth that we're talking about is in the areas that we don't want.
Okay.
There's just little spots, like one hair, like here or there on the. You know what I'm saying?
For women?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Is
they can pluck that out. That's not a big deal.
That's the comical thing they'll say. Like, oh, I saw it. Yeah, I plucked it out. It's no big deal. I don't change my dose. It's funny when they come back. They're like, I'll be like, well, you consider you want to go down the dose, even if I thought the level was at the real high end of normal, whatever. I know there weren't any danger, but I'm like, you want to consider? I'm like, nah, you keep it where it is.
They're loving it.
Yeah. With the guys, I've never heard this in the women so much, but I have a little bit. You know, it's every once in a while. Dreams.
Dreams. Huh.
It's the dreams.
Bad dreams? Good
well,
dreams?
What it is
wet
people
dreams.
get bad dreams.
No, I said wet dreams.
Did you really just say that? No. It's funny, as you get older, you're used to your sleep patterns and your dream style. And when you start throwing off somebody's dreams, it can really weird them out.
Huh.
I'm not and I had a couple of guys a long time ago that the dreams were bothering them. And they stopped it altogether because of the dreams.
Interesting.
Yeah, in the women it's less noticeable, but in aggression, okay.
Yeah, let's talk about the aggression.
Yeah, the aggression. Now, I've had a few women there. It wasn't really aggression, but it was. I don't even know if I'd call it mood swings, but it was maybe emotional. I don't know how to even really define it, but this is not common, and it's also reversible as well. I mean, you could change the dose or do whatever you want to do, but I've seen that to where I'm not talking about just emotional, like out of control. It's just a little bit of the more ups and downs. Mm-hmm. Okay. In the men, it can be aggression when you're doing it too much.
Because pellets are all forms of testosterone.
All forms, yeah. And I'm going to tell you, I think it's more common. All that's more common with the shots. Least common with the pellets.
Because shot, it just goes boom, straight in your bloodstream.
Up and down.
Dose, and then it wears off.
It's such a roller coaster.
Right. Yeah. I get it. That makes sense.
Now, also in men, just want to tell you the shots, even though they're so common all over the world, it has the most ups and downs. It also has the most estrogen conversion because, testosterone gets converted to estrogen in your body. Men and women, there's a conversion. The women do it more, the enzymatic conversion, and so men can get more estrogenic effects, like some more
boobs,
puffy boobs,
man boobs,
puffy, from
testosterone.
Yeah,
it's becoming
the aromatization of what they call it to estrogen, a weak estrogen, and so they can get more a doughy look, and so you can put them on a very cheap, safe, inexpensive estrogen blocker called an aromatase inhibitor.
Is that an oral pill?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
And that's not a steroid. It blocks an enzymatic reaction.
Okay.
So you can get that at your local pharmacy for dirt cheap. And so the ones that we tend to write that for the most are the ones that are on the men with the shots.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Plus, there's more chance of getting clumpy blood cells with the shot, so we have to check your hemoglobin, and they're the ones that have to end up wanting to donate blood because they got too much blood cells floating around.
Yeah.
And, theoretically, you can think that you could probably blame it on some of these professional athletes that get blood clots and all these weird disorders that they've just got levels too high. I'm not picking on that, but that's probably a high. Platelets get sticky, and that causes health problems.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely do hear in the sports world, especially, it seemed like 10 years ago, there would be like some baseball player, some WWE wrestler that would just go crazy.
Yeah,
and who's on testosterone.
They may have been on some more of the stuff too, growth factor injections or growth hormone injections and just.
Yeah. What's the difference between like a HGH and like testosterone?
So, HGH.
It's a growth hormone.
Growth hormone, growth factors, all that. See, those aren't steroids, even though they will get classed into that for that slang, but they're not all made of cholesterol. See, all those things we were talking about, like progesterone and testosterone and estrogen, other different forms of estradiol, those all start with a molecule of cholesterol. We make it out of cholesterol. But you can call them hormones. They're signaling agents. Well, HCG, it is also a signaling agent. You can call it a hormone because it tells other cells what to do, but it's not a steroid. It's not made from cholesterol.
Okay.
So that's where it really gets all messed up and confused, you see. So it tells things what to do quite a bit.
Is HGH like naturally occurring in our body?
We have a similar thing. It's a peptide.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a peptide, and it's a small agent that works up here in your what I call your central axis. I made up that for simple conversations with patients between your hypothalamus and your pituitary, anterior posterior pituitary. Those are little peptides that tell things to do stuff.
So HGH, the growth hormones are more synthetic. They're certainly not bioidentical.
There is a bioidentical version.
Okay.
But all those little peptides have been manipulated scientifically to do particular functions that are similar to what growth hormone does. Let's just call it growth hormone, okay? So there's you hear all these different kinds, but they all have a slight variation. But they're really these short peptide chains that are really activate the anterior pituitary, usually somewhere in that axis, to tell your body to, hey, you can give somebody growth hormone, or you can tell the pituitary to make growth hormone. So some of them stimulate the anterior to make your own growth hormone, which is safer.
But that's different than peptide therapy, right?
Peptide therapy goes a long way. Peptide just means this is a description of the amino acids in a chain, because you got peptide therapy that don't even work in this area, have nothing to do with growth hormone. They do other things.
Okay.
They go directly to a cell and signal it. Right. So you could call it a hormone, you could call it a signaling agent, you could call it a peptide, but it's not a steroid.
It gets a little confusing.
It does. They've really messed it up. So it's just because there's so much slang out there, because there's peptide and then there's a steroid. The steroids are made of cholesterol. A peptide is made of a bunch of amino acids in a chain, which would be this peptide releasing stuff, insulin, semaglutide that's out there. Those are signaling agents. You could call them hormones. I don't know, but they're not steroids made from cholesterol.
Gotcha. So testosterone is though.
Yes,
testosterone is a steroid.
It's a sex steroid, as opposed to cortisol and aldosterone made by your adrenal gland. In addition to testosterone, those are all, the adrenal gland makes all these. The cortex makes all these steroids.
Got it. But the end goal, the end game for an aging man or woman is that the benefits of testosterone certainly can help with cognitive ability, Alzheimer's, heart health, obesity, energy, getting you into the gym, muscle mass, bone density. What else am I missing on the benefits of testosterone?
Well, your ability to work out, your ability to want to work out, your overall self-image, your ability to recover faster. And if you're on a weight loss plan, you want to lose weight, because all those extra fat cells in a man, it takes your own natural testosterone you're making, and those fat cells are able to aromatize it into estrogen. So now you got more estrogenic effects of your own testosterone being made.
I've heard over half of obese men have low T.
Yeah, if anything, they might be making the T, but it gets aromatized to weak estrogen. And so, that makes it even less of their own testosterone even available for them to use.
Yeah. I've heard obese men that have diabetes, 80% of them have low testosterone.
Yeah, when you start throwing the diabetes in it, that's probably multifactorial on why it might affect your testosterone. Because it has so many different implications on your body. Yeah.
So pellet therapy so you think that you said it's been around a while, but you've seen a surge in it. Is this like the next almost semaglutide? Is this going to get wildly popular, you think, in the next five years or so?
I would say it's going to get more and more popular. It didn't have that sudden rapid rise like semaglutide, even though semaglutide has been out for over a decade. But when the FDA approved it for weight loss around 2021. It wasn't even then. It's just it wasn't recognized, and so it shot up. It's the compound pharmacies just can't keep up. Yeah. And but no, I think that testosterone replacement. Let's break that up. I think testosterone replacement therapy in men and women is going to be on the rise, and it is. It's doing that steadily. Of the varieties of ways to replace it or optimize that in people is going to be sliding more and more towards pellets.
Okay.
I really do, because of its steady level in the bloodstream, safety profile, bioidentical, eliminating the problem with compliance, and the data. Like I encourage people to look up Donovitz on PubMed. You can just look it in, testosterone replacement therapy. It's huge, over 1 million people. And that was put out years ago. He's probably got an update on that. That whole outfit's got their own software. Right. They can just keep updating it with this huge amount of backing. Yeah. So I think hormone replacement therapy is just going to be more common again in the future, when a lot of women got robbed but that's kind of reversing. Testosterone is going to be more included in hormone optimization in women, and in both sexes, they're going to be coming back wanting to get it optimized because it's the thriving in the elder years. The hormones have a lot to do with making that successful.
Yeah. Well, we've certainly heard a lot of good success stories, especially from our patients about it, especially the female population. They really seem to like the pellets, the pellet therapy. And they're booking. So what happens is they get the pellets, and then in 2 months they get labs to just check their levels.
That's right, just a few labs. It's included in the price of the pellet itself, and that way we use those labs to justify any dosing changes that we might need to do on their next 4-month pellet insertion.
Right.
So it's just every 2 months. Mm-hmm. Every 4 months is the pellet, and the 2 months in between that is just drawing some blood tests. Now we obviously offer other cheap blood tests for longevity purposes,
right,
to include in that. But that's the routine, and you won't have to do anything. Once you've left here, you don't have to do anything else.
Yep.
There's no prescriptions, nothing shipped to your house.
Recover for a few days and then get back at it.
You're done.
Yeah. Well, cool. I think this has been great. It's definitely something that we get a lot of questions about with the hormone pellets and all of that, and it certainly seems to be catching fire. So thanks for taking the time today, Dr. Cullison.
Enjoyed it anytime. I'm looking forward to the next podcast.
All right. We'll see you guys next time on the Mojo Podcast Studio. Thank you.